Hello, I'm McRogers, grief therapist. Grief needs a revolution, so welcome to the Grievolution. It is the spring equinox in our hemisphere, the northern hemisphere today, and I've spent some time this week speaking with clients in my therapy practice about the fact that spring is a really difficult time to have grief in our hearts. So I dug up this old video that I made a couple of years ago that I want you to watch to explain why this is so hard. And if this makes sense to you while you carry grief in your heart in the spring, I'm going to include in the video description a link to a meditation that I made, a meditation and a ritual that I made about carrying your grief in the spring. So all you'll need to do is click on the link and you can do the meditation, do the ritual when you are ready after you've gathered all of your materials. I thought it would be helpful just to recycle this video and know that if you're feeling so out of step as the world is emerging and awakening and renewal, when your grief is holding you back, I want you to know that this is normal, natural, and not to be fearful of it. So hopefully you'll do the ritual, you'll feel a little bit stronger to meet your grief in the spring. How did spring sneak in? If you have grief in your heart, you may not be ready for spring. Winter may have been more suited to your mood. But now there's a crocus blooming in my garden and it's spring. So today we're going to explore the difficulty of carrying the weight of grief in the season of spring. I'm McRogers and I'm a therapist who supports grief in my private therapy practice and in this YouTube channel. So please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications bell so that you'll know every time we explore a new aspect of grief. So let's have a look at spring and grief. So here is the crocus that appeared in my garden. Let's talk for a minute about some thoughts about grief. So I often define grief as change not by choice. If we had choices, by choice, our loved one would still be here. Our loved one would be healthy. Our loved one would no longer have any pain. Our loved one would be in a strong, healthy, loving relationship with us. And there would be no tragedy. There would be presence and a future together. Grief as a life-altering experience teaches us that we have very little control. We all like to live as if the big things are under control. The don't sweat the little things attitude can certainly serve us well in helping us to release the need for control in small places. But grief, grief teaches us that we have no control over the big things. Things such as safety, mortality, health, love, or our ability to protect those who we love. Now, in my own personal grief experiences and in my work where I support people who are grievers, there are at least 3 common grief experiences. And the first one speaks to being disoriented with your grief. Grief completely disorients us. Our days become nights, our nights become reversed, our weekdays become weekends, weekends become months, and before you know it, who even knows what season it is? The second thing that happens is feeling so out of step with the rest of the world. When we are grieving, we are in our own personal grief bubble. The boundaries of that bubble can be held through things such as shock or trauma or insomnia or depression or anxiety, through substance use and abuse, through lack of nourishment, and there are so many more elements that can impact what our bubble becomes. But the fact that our person died already sets us apart from the rest of the world. So grief is a uniquely isolating experience. There's no way to not feel out of step with the rest of the world. The third thing is that when we are grieving, we feel as though we have lost our past. We feel as though the future, of course, is never going to be as we imagined it now. And what happens is that our present is filled with sadness or anger or remorse or longing. And when all of these three states are filled with pain, then we lose our innate sense of hope for the future. So now on to spring. Themes of spring. These include more hours of daylight, new beginnings. This is when traditions get launched, such as barbecues or trips to the cottage, picnics in the park, playing sports outdoors. There are a lot of traditions that happen in spring. A sense of momentum after the deep winter freeze is what spring brings in terms of moving forward. The whole idea of growth and expansion is all around us as the flowers begin to bloom and the trees begin to fill out and the buds form and the baby chicks appear. The whole idea about social opportunities, again, is that we are outside of our homes. We see and talk to our neighbors more casually. We plan summer vacations. We have holidays. There's so much that can happen in spring, either in spring or planning for the summer. Spring, it is the start of something good. And then next, we begin to talk about spring and grief. So when you contrast these two states of spring and grief, what happens is we're contrasting renewal and loss. We're contrasting light and joy and sad and dark. There are traditions, and then there's the free fall into how do I navigate my grief in social situations. There's the sense of moving forward when grief can make us feel like we are stuck in cement. The sense of growth that spring brings versus the emptiness that grief brings. The whole idea of social opportunities in spring versus the idea of being so isolated in our grief bubble. So with these two very polar opposite states, why would we consider using a ritual? Well, it's important to know that rituals play a really important part in our grief. Rituals can become powerful tools to support our saddest emotions. They can become so important because they involve symbolism, and symbolism can create a safe place of expression that can add meaning to our darkness of our grief. If you have any sense of imagination at all, and that's why this can work with kids to seniors, any sense of an imagination, rituals are accessible to all because we're creating it. It's our own. The idea is also that when we talk about creating intentions and providing a release, rituals provide very gentle pathways to transitions in grief that generally shock us and rock our worlds. So creating intentions and inviting in opportunities for release is a really important part that a ritual can play. And the final one around reminding us of what we do have control over. Participating in a ritual can serve to remind us that we do still have places of power, control, and influence in our world because grief robs us of that sense. So rituals can be very important. The next question is, why an altar? Well, grief often takes us very far away from our inner guidance, our sense of intuition. Creating an altar can serve to act as an invitation back to your intuition. Some people can call it spirit, some others will call it God, Allah, any other reference that brings you comfort or familiarity. Creating an altar is an invitation to bring that back into your life while grief has separated you from that guidance system. The idea of combining symbolism and personalization is so important because doing this, creating your very own altar, makes your ritual personalized through the objects that you gather and that you hold sacred. This is your grief. It needs to be addressed through your own unique sense of ritual and altar. Next point that talks about acting as a moment in the present. If you are creating your altar, if you lay down a beautiful cloth And then you place the items that you've selected with care and reverence. These actions will create a moment of being in the present. And being present is something that we all need to practice when we are bereaved. And the final point is that altar and a ritual invites in an honoring. It's so important that honoring is part of your grief. I personally believe that it's one of the most important tasks of our grief is to find small, consistent, accessible, meaningful ways to honor our loved one. Your personalized altar can accomplish this sense of honoring the person that you have loved and lost. It can honor the sense of safety in being present with your grief. So, what would be the objectives of this ritual? So while I ask you to each create your own objectives for your use with the ritual that I'll send to you, these are the ones that I offer up to you. So the first ritual objective would be to acknowledge the spring as well as our grief. It is a time of transition. It is a movement into light. It is a movement into some momentum, some growth, some action of being with your grief. The second is this ritual is going to offer up an opportunity to release and to invite in. Well, your ritual can be done many times over. It can be done with different griefs. It can be done with the same grief several times. So please, I would ask you to bring a willingness to experiment with that. In this picture, I share with you what my altar looked like. This is my spring altar. And in the altar, you'll see the beautiful silver plate was my mother-in-law's, Nana's. The hammered copper bracelet that sits on it was Janny's, which was a grandmother matriarch. And the wedding ring on the platter is from my mom's finger that she wore proudly for many years. So my spring altar was meant to honor the matriarchs in my life. My spring altar asks the questions of who's the elder now? Who holds the wisdom of both the past and into the future? It was an important objective for me to honor the matriarchs in my life for all the lessons that they've taught me, for all the lessons that await me, and for all the wisdom and guidance that they provide on my journey. So if you are going to participate in your own spring ritual, the objects I would ask you to gather and bring would be a candle and matches to light it. I'm going to ask you to bring an ice cube, and you'll need a small bowl with some water in it. You also need a hand towel for your hands, and you're going to need some privacy. You're going to need some space. I'm going to ask you to have about 20 or 30 minutes to yourself, and you don't want to be interrupted. I'm not posting this meditation ritual on YouTube because they're often interrupted with commercials. So I want you to have your own personal experience with it that doesn't get interrupted. So when you sign up and you're prepared to do your ritual, these are the things that I would ask you to have at the ready. When you click on the video and start your own ritual, this is going to be the only picture that you'll see. And I chose this picture specifically because it symbolizes, back to symbolism, it symbolizes the fact that you are the holder of your own light. And it's such an important perspective to take into any kind of ritual, to know that you have the wherewithal within you to have your relationship with grief. So let's think about the ritual and the altar as making a safe place to begin to enter into that relationship. If this video has been informative or helpful, please like it with the thumbs up, and then YouTube can then know to make it available broadly to all of those who are feeling the weight of their grief in the spring season. And in your attempt to do grief differently, I send to you kind thoughts, kind words, and a kind heart. Please take good care.